If you Google what the world's biggest sport is, it's football, with around 3.5 billion fans. Do you know the population of Croatia, the country that was the World Cup runner-up behind France in 2018? Take a guess. The answer is around 3.9 million people. To me, it's absolutely fascinating that such a small country, relatively, almost won the world's most popular sport. So today, I wanted to take a closer look at Croatia and how they built such a successful team and what chances they have to get all the way to the final this year in Qatar. Let's start with some brief history. Croatia became independent in 1991, no longer being a part of Yugoslavia. In 1994, UEFA and FIFA recognized Croatia as a national team, making them eligible to compete in the big competitions such as the Euros and the World Cup. Ever since, Croatia has enjoyed fairly consistent good performances and only failed to qualify for two major competitions, the 2010 World Cup and the 2000 Euros. Their best performances include getting third place at their very first World Cup in 1998 and of course their performance at the last World Cup in 2018, which we'll dive into shortly. Before getting into the Croatian 2018 World Cup run and the World Cup coming in under 20 days in Qatar, let's take a look at Croatia and see exactly how the nation created its footballing success. For some countries, music brought them together. For others, perhaps belief. But football, amongst other cultural forces, was something that Croatians really identified with. Football was more than just a sport for Croatia. It became integrated into the culture. It was unifying for a country that had endured so much. And after independence, football was a way of showing the world and itself the Croatian spirit, and the 1998 World Cup performance was euphoric. But since that performance, Croatia, to its own high standards, has been frustrated with round of 16 exits and failed qualifications. The football team and football as a whole in the country, despite its success, is not funded enough by the state, with economic problems riddling Croatia for significant periods since independence. The country even currently still plays at the Stadium Maksimir, which is an old stadium opened in 1912. It is home for Dinamo Zagreb, and the national team is disappointed to still be playing at such an old venue. However, even with the monetary support for football being so low, Croatians still produce some of the best footballers in the world, and currently have their talent spread all over Europe's best teams, matching countries like Portugal and Germany in the amount of players at big European clubs. I have to say, I think it really comes down to the culture for Croatia, a love for football and clearly talented and strong people. They not only have shown success in football, but also in other sports like water polo, handball, and basketball. The link between culture and football can perhaps be seen in other countries such as Brazil and perhaps Uruguay, who have a similar population to Croatia with similar success. Now, after that very brief history and understanding of Croatia and its football culture, which by the way there is a lot more to, let's talk about Croatia's last 4 years leading up to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, starting with the 2018 World Cup. Croatia arrived at the World Cup in Russia as 10th favorites with a 33-1 odds of winning, and were put in a group with Argentina, Nigeria, and Iceland. The first game was against Nigeria, where Croatia were unlucky not to score more, 2-0 to Croatia, and while the stats in the game looked even, Croatia were skimming the post all game. They showed signs of being a dangerous attacking side in many ways with chances from aerial set pieces as well as chances from open play. Modric scored a penalty and an unfortunate own goal was the second goal of this game, but again, from a set piece. It was a really solid game, and now being all warmed up, Argentina was next, the clear favorite of the group. Argentina had just come off of a 1-1 draw against Iceland, and they were certainly sweating. And with a victory against Argentina, Croatia would get their spot in the knockouts. I don't think anyone quite expected what would happen in this game, however, a 3-0 victory to Croatia, with Argentina riddled with mistakes, especially the goalkeeper practically gifting Croatia the first goal and then missing an open goal opportunity. Croatia's last game in the group stage was against Iceland, which was a 2-1 victory to Croatia. Croatia had topped the group, and perhaps this is a good time to mention the tremendous squad Croatia had come to the tournament with. Excuse any bad pronunciation. The following is their lineup against the Nigeria game from goalkeeper up to striker: Subasic, Strinic, Lovren, Vida, Vrsaljko, Rakitic, Modric, Perisic, Rebic, and Mandzukic, along with a strong bench, which would feature later in the tournament. This is truly a monumental team with some of the best players in Europe, and let me just additionally highlight their star captain and golden child of the generation, Luka Modric. Next, Croatia played Denmark, and what an intense game it would be. Both teams made sloppy mistakes early on, followed by a barrage of opportunities from both sides. But it was Croatia in the end that looked the more creative side, creating a penalty via the amazing and underrated Mandzukic. So nearly at the end of the 120 minutes, Modric steps up to take the penalty and it's a miss. The game goes to penalties and the Croatian quality and nerves of steel end up prevailing over Denmark. A grueling game that would mentally harden all players involved. The quarterfinals had Croatia up against the hosts who had just defeated Spain. It was Russia. This could have been called an easy draw, but it was anything but. This match would be the most enthralling yet. Russia had the home crowd on their side and they started with a wonder goal from Cheryshev. Croatia would then start their creating machine and score a brilliant header from Kramaric, showing their aerial prowess. Late into extra time, Vida scored a brilliant header showing his strength, but Russia would not retreat and equalized late via a free kick, which meant a penalty shootout. It really felt like they were fighting with their souls, but in the end, Croatia would win the penalty shootout with a deciding penalty coming from Rakitic once again. And now it was semi-final time, and it would mean heartbreak for either Croatia or England. Croatia would have a scattered first half, finally meeting a team that matched their creativity and chance creation. They could have easily been down 2-0 at halftime, but luckily for them, it was 1-0 that came from a perfect direct free kick from Trippier. But they came alive in the second half, creating chance after chance all the way through the 120 minutes, with the partnership of Perisic and Mandzukic being all too much for England. Croatia won 2-1 and showed their mental fortitude again, completing yet another exciting comeback. And now it was the end of the line. The final was against France, and it would mean either Croatia would win their first World Cup or they would go home runners-up. The game ended a victory for France, but Croatia won our hearts. The game ended 4-2 and it was the most exciting World Cup final I can remember. Modric received the consolation of being player of the tournament, which was fully deserved, but I could have easily seen it been given to Perisic as he was an absolute champion this tournament as well. This could not be called anything but a success for the small European country that proved everyone wrong, but for Croatians it also bore a heavy feeling of the end. After this final, many players between 2018 and the 2022 World Cup would retire or otherwise not be a part of the national team, including Rakitic, Mandzukic, Rebic, Karluka, Badel, Varsalko, Subasic, Strinic, and others. Many decided to end their career on the high point of silver in the World Cup. Here's what legendary Mandzukic had to say about his retirement. Now that we've covered perhaps Croatia's biggest success in history when it comes to football, as said by Mandzukic himself, let's take a look at Croatia's form since, and as briefly as possible. And then let's take a look at what we can expect from Croatia in 2022 and brainstorm some early predictions. Unsurprisingly, Croatia qualified for the 2020 Euros in 2021 and would make it out of the group stage. But they lost to England 1-0 in the opening game, and perhaps that was England's revenge for knocking them out of the World Cup. They eventually met Spain in the round of 16, where they would once again take part in a fantastic and exciting game that ended with extra time and Croatia losing 3-5. But they did manage to come back from 3-1 to 3-3 in the game. Also in 2021, Croatia topped their qualifying group with Russia, Slovenia, Slovakia, Malta, and Cyprus to qualify for the World Cup. And finally, most recently, in 2022, Croatia has been in tremendous form, only losing one game of the 8 they've played this year. And they also topped the Nations League group with France, Denmark, and Austria. As a result, yes, they beat France, the team they could not overcome last World Cup. So now, Croatia go into this World Cup with seemingly great form. What does the squad look like now, and what are the key differences from last World Cup? While key stars Perisic, Modric, and Lovren are all still very present in the squad in top form, players such as Vida, Kramaric, Kovacic, and Brozovic from 2018 are also still here. The rest of the predicted squad is a lot of fresh talent with significantly less caps. I would also say perhaps the biggest hole unfilled since the World Cup is the striker or center forward position. Mandzukic proved a little too difficult to replace. But now, going into the World Cup in Qatar, Croatia are 11th favorites. Seemingly, they have fallen farther down from the previous World Cup despite their recent performances, with potentially a 50-1 odds of winning with around a 2% chance that means. So let's break down potentially why. Let's break down the group for Croatia, Group F, which is Belgium, Morocco, Canada, and Croatia. Croatia's opening game is against Morocco, a formidable side with potentially little time to prepare as they have recently appointed a new head coach. But since then, they have defeated Chile and tied to Paraguay in a friendly with their newly reinstated star Hakim Ziyech. Although an upset is possible, I see the more prepared and informed side, Croatia, winning this game at first glance. Following along with the rest of the group, I see the experience of Belgium giving Canada a hard time. However, Belgium's squad is quite old and Canada's is quite young with explosive players like Alphonso Davies, so it could go either way, but I see Belgium taking 3 points here. The next game is Croatia and Canada, and while again this young exciting team could cause an upset, I don't see the CONCACAF team looking dangerous enough at first glance. They have a recent loss against Uruguay and a win against Qatar, being the only experience they have outside of their relatively weaker region. Croatia to win and Belgium to have a very close game with Morocco, maybe a similar game that Belgium and Canada had. It could go many ways, but I'm going to put it down as a victory for Belgium. So that sets up for a no-risk matchup between Croatia and Belgium, with both teams already being through, and the more favorable draw being at stake. Could go either way. If Croatia win the group, they're likely to meet Germany or Spain, then Portugal, then England or France. If Croatia gets second, they could meet Germany or Spain, then Brazil, then Argentina. So take your pick, South American or European bracket. Either way, of course, no easy feat. I see Croatia putting up close fights with European sides that they know well and unpredictable games against South American sides. I believe in the Croatian spirit and the love for the game, and I expect fights till the very end and more exciting games from this squad. I haven't talked about him much in this video, but I do believe in their inspiring captain. Luka Modric is the heart of this squad, and his final World Cup, you best believe it will be glorious. Go Hrvatska. How far can Croatia make it? Can they win it all? Let me know.